In the heart of a sprawling city, where skyscrapers kissed the clouds and streets buzzed with endless activity, there stood a massive warehouse belonging to one of the largest food distribution companies in the country. The company was known for its efficiency, supplying fresh produce, baked goods, and packaged meals to grocery stores nationwide. Its founder and CEO, Jonathan Reed, had built the business from scratch, starting with just a small truck and a dream. Over the years, he grew it into an empire. But despite his success, Jonathan often felt disconnected from the everyday operations of his company. He spent most of his time in boardrooms, surrounded by executives discussing strategies and profits, rarely interacting with the workers who kept the wheels turning. One day, Jonathan decided to step out of his corner office and see the reality of his company firsthand. He wanted to understand how things were truly running on the ground, so he came up with a plan. He would go undercover as a new employee. Disguising himself with glasses, a cap, and plain clothes, Jonathan joined the workforce at one of the busiest sorting facilities. The facility was responsible for inspecting, packaging, and shipping food items to various locations. It was loud, chaotic, and filled with people rushing to meet tight deadlines. Jonathan found himself assigned to a team tasked with sorting through crates of fruits and vegetables, ensuring only the best quality made it to the trucks. Among his co-workers, Jonathan quickly noticed a man named Marcus. Marcus wasn't particularly talkative, but his work ethic was undeniable. While others took breaks or chatted during downtime, Marcus remained focused, moving swiftly between tasks. What struck Jonathan most, however, was that Marcus never joined the group for lunch or snacks. Every day when the lunch bell rang, Marcus stayed behind, working silently while everyone else headed to the break room. At first, Jonathan assumed Marcus simply preferred solitude or had a strict diet, but over time his behavior began to seem unusual. It wasn't until late one evening, just before closing time, that Jonathan witnessed something that left him stunned. As the shift ended and employees filed out of the warehouse, Marcus lingered behind. Jonathan watched curiously as Marcus approached the large trash bins near the loading dock. These bins were filled with discarded food items, bruised apples, slightly wilted lettuce, and half-eaten sandwiches from the break room. To Jonathan's disbelief, Marcus began rummaging through the trash, carefully picking out edible pieces of food. He inspected each item closely before placing it into a small plastic bag he carried with him. Jonathan's stomach churned as he realized what was happening. A worker in his own company was sneaking food from the trash to survive. Unable to shake off what he had seen, Jonathan couldn't stop thinking about Marcus the next day. Why would someone who worked so hard resort to such desperate measures? Was it pride, shame, or something else entirely? Determined to find answers, Jonathan tried to strike up a conversation with Marcus during their shift. At first, Marcus was hesitant, offering only brief responses to Jonathan's questions. But as they worked side by side, Jonathan managed to learn a few details about Marcus's life. He lived alone, commuted over an hour to get to the facility, and always seemed preoccupied with thoughts beyond the warehouse walls. Jonathan pressed further, asking casually if Marcus enjoyed living in the city. Marcus hesitated before replying softly, "It's not bad, but it's not easy either." When Jonathan asked why, Marcus fell silent again, clearly uncomfortable sharing more. Despite the lack of information, Jonathan's curiosity deepened. Something about Marcus's demeanor hinted at a story far more complex than Jonathan had imagined. Over the next few days, Jonathan continued observing Marcus closely. He noticed subtle signs of hardship: Marcus's worn-out shoes, his frayed jacket, and the way he skipped meals consistently. One afternoon, another co-worker mentioned that Marcus never accepted invitations to grab coffee or hang out after work. "He's always saving money," the co-worker said with a shrug. "Guess he's got bills to pay." This revelation gnawed at Jonathan. He couldn't reconcile the image of his thriving company with the sight of one of its employees scavenging for food. It didn't make sense. If Marcus worked hard and earned a decent wage, why was he struggling so much? The question haunted Jonathan, driving him to dig deeper. Finally, during a quiet moment on the floor, Jonathan mustered the courage to ask Marcus directly, Hey, I've been meaning to ask. You okay? You seem like you've got a lot on your mind. Marcus froze for a moment, then let out a heavy sigh. After a long pause, he began speaking, his voice barely above a whisper. I'm fine, Marcus started, though his tone suggested otherwise. It's just, life's complicated, you know. Jonathan nodded encouragingly, sensing that Marcus might finally open up. Slowly, Marcus revealed bits and pieces of his story. Both of his parents had passed away unexpectedly when he was young, leaving him and his two younger siblings orphaned. With no relatives nearby to take them in, Marcus became their guardian overnight. Though he managed to keep them together, the responsibility weighed heavily on him. Every paycheck he earned went toward keeping a roof over their heads, paying school fees, and ensuring they had enough to eat. But it's not enough, Marcus admitted, his voice cracking. I send almost everything I earn back home for my siblings. They're still kids. They deserve a chance at a good life. So I cut corners wherever I can. That's why I don't spend money on meals here. And sometimes, his voice trailed off, but Jonathan understood. Sometimes, Marcus relied on scraps from the trash to get by. Hearing this, Jonathan felt a wave of emotions, shock, guilt, and admiration, all colliding inside him. Here was a man who sacrificed everything for his family, yet he did so quietly, without complaint or expectation of recognition. As the days passed, Jonathan found himself reflecting on what he had learned. He thought about the disconnect between his role as CEO and the realities faced by his employees. He prided himself on providing fair wages and benefits, but clearly that wasn't enough. There were gaps in the system, cracks where people like Marcus slipped through unnoticed. Jonathan knew he had to act, not just for Marcus but for anyone else who might be silently struggling. That night, unable to sleep, he sat at his desk drafting plans to address the issue. He envisioned creating an emergency assistance fund specifically, designed to help employees facing financial crises. Additionally, he resolved to change the company's policy on leftover food, ensuring that edible items were donated to local shelters rather than discarded. The following week, Jonathan revealed his true identity to Marcus and the rest of the staff. Standing in front of the team, he explained what he had witnessed and learned during his time undercover. He shared Marcus's story, not to embarrass him, but to highlight the importance of empathy and support within the workplace. Jonathan announced the launch of the Emergency Assistance Fund, which would provide financial aid to employees dealing with hardships like medical emergencies, housing instability, or family obligations. He also pledged to implement a program to donate surplus food to charities, reducing waste and helping those in need. Tears welled up in Marcus's eyes as he listened to Jonathan speak. For years he had shouldered his burdens alone, afraid to ask for help or draw attention to his struggles. But now, standing in front of his boss and coworkers, he felt seen and understood for the first time. Thank you, Marcus said, his voice trembling. Not just for me, but for realizing that some of us are fighting battles you can't see. The room erupted in applause, and Jonathan felt a profound sense of purpose wash over him. This experience had changed him. Success, he realized, wasn't measured solely by numbers on a balance sheet, but by the positive impact you leave on the lives of others. Word of Jonathan's actions spread quickly throughout the company, inspiring other branches to adopt similar initiatives. Employees began feeling more valued and supported, knowing their leadership cared about more than profits. For Marcus, life improved significantly. He could now focus on excelling at work while still supporting his siblings. And for Jonathan, the experience marked a turning point. From then on, he vowed to lead with empathy and compassion, proving that sometimes the smallest acts of kindness can spark the biggest transformations. The next morning, Jonathan arrived at the warehouse earlier than usual, his mind still replaying the conversation he had with Marcus. He couldn't shake the image of Marcus standing there, quietly admitting to the weight he carried every day. It wasn't just about feeding himself, it was about keeping his family afloat. Jonathan realized that Marcus's story was likely not unique. There could be others in similar situations, Employees who came to work every day putting on a brave face while silently battling their own struggles. The thought unsettled him deeply. How many people had he overlooked? How many stories had gone untold because no one bothered to ask? Determined to understand more, Jonathan spent the rest of the week observing not just Marcus but the entire team. He noticed small details he had missed before. Some workers brought peanut butter sandwiches wrapped in tin foil for lunch, eating quickly and returning to their tasks. Others skipped breaks altogether, claiming they needed to catch up on work. Jonathan began asking casual questions during downtime, pretending to make small talk. Slowly, he uncovered fragments of lives outside the warehouse. One woman mentioned she worked 2 jobs to pay off medical bills for her sick mother. Another man said he took extra shifts to save for his daughter's college tuition. Each story added another layer to the picture Jonathan was piecing together, a mosaic of resilience, sacrifice, and quiet determination. But it was Marcus's situation that weighed most heavily on Jonathan's mind. Over the next few days, he tried to find opportunities to speak with Marcus again, hoping to learn more without prying too much. During one slow moment, Jonathan approached Marcus and asked if he ever got time to relax or enjoy hobbies outside of work. Marcus chuckled softly, shaking his head. "Not really," he replied. "Most of my free time goes into taking care of things at home. I help my siblings with homework, cook dinner, clean up. You know how it is." Jonathan nodded, though he didn't fully understand. Growing up, he had never experienced such responsibilities. His parents had provided for him, allowing him to focus on school and later building his career. Hearing Marcus describe his daily routine made Jonathan acutely aware of how different their lives were. Jonathan decided to dig deeper into Marcus's background. On his way home one evening, he stopped by a nearby cafe and pulled out his laptop. Using the little information Marcus had shared, Jonathan searched online for clues about his life. After some effort, he found a local news article from several years ago about a tragic car accident that claimed the lives of Marcus's parents. The report mentioned that Marcus, then only 19, had stepped up to raise his younger siblings. Reading the article filled Jonathan with a mix of sadness and admiration. At such a young age, Marcus had taken on responsibilities far beyond what anyone should have to endure. Yet here he was, working tirelessly, refusing to give up despite the odds stacked against him. Back at the warehouse the following day, Jonathan continued his undercover role, all the while wrestling with what he had learned. He couldn't stop thinking about the stark contrast between his privileged life and Marcus's reality. Here he was, a multi-millionaire CEO, able to afford luxuries most people could only dream of, while Marcus struggled to put food on the table, even resorting to scavenging from trash bins. The injustice of it gnawed at Jonathan. He had always believed his company treated its employees fairly, offering competitive wages and benefits. But now, he saw that fairness wasn't enough. Sometimes even good intentions fell short when they failed to address the complexities of real life. That afternoon, as Jonathan sorted through crates of vegetables alongside Marcus, he decided to broach the subject again. "You mentioned your siblings earlier," he said casually. "How old are they now?" Marcus glanced at him briefly before answering. "My sister's 14 and my brother's 12. They're good kids, smart too. I want them to finish school and maybe go to college someday." Jonathan nodded thoughtfully. "That's great. Do they ever come visit you here?" Marcus shook his head. "Nah, it's a long bus ride and I don't want them seeing this place anyway. It's better if they focus on their studies." The comment struck Jonathan. Marcus didn't want his siblings exposed to the harshness of his world, the early mornings, the grueling work, the sacrifices he made daily. He wanted to shield them from it, giving them a chance at a brighter future. It was a selfless act, one that spoke volumes about Marcus's character. Jonathan felt a lump rise in his throat. He wished he could do something to ease Marcus's burden, but he didn't know where to start. For now, all he could do was listen and observe, hoping to find a way to help without overstepping boundaries. As the week drew to a close, Jonathan prepared to reveal his true identity to the team. He knew it was a risky move, Some might feel betrayed or angry that their boss had been spying on them, but he also believed it was necessary. If he wanted to create meaningful change, he needed to confront the issue head-on. On his final day, Undercover, Jonathan gathered everyone in the break room after their shift ended. Standing nervously in front of the group, he removed his glasses and cap, revealing his face. Gasps rippled through the room as recognition dawned on their faces. "I'm Jonathan Reed," he said, his voice steady despite the tension in the air. "And for the past week, I've been working alongside you as one of you." Silence fell over the room as the employees processed what they were hearing. Some looked shocked, others confused, but none spoke. Jonathan took a deep breath and continued. "I came here because I wanted to see firsthand how things operate on the ground. What I discovered was both inspiring and humbling. You all work incredibly hard, often under difficult circumstances. And yet, I realized that some of you are carrying burdens I never imagined." He paused, glancing at Marcus, who stood frozen in place. "One of you, in particular, opened my eyes to the challenges you face outside these walls. I won't share names, but I will say this. No one should have to choose between feeding themselves and supporting their loved ones." Jonathan went on to explain his plans for change within the company. First, he announced the creation of an emergency assistance fund designed to provide financial aid to employees dealing with crises like medical emergencies, housing instability, or family obligations. The fund would be confidential, ensuring that those who sought help wouldn't feel stigmatized. Second, he pledged to revamp the company's policy on leftover food, partnering with local shelters to donate edible items rather than throwing them away. Finally, he promised to hold regular meetings with employees across all levels of the organization, creating open channels of communication so that concerns could be addressed promptly. When Jonathan finished speaking, the room erupted in applause. Many employees wiped tears from their eyes, moved by his words. Marcus stepped forward, his expression a mixture of gratitude and disbelief. "Thank you," he said simply, his voice trembling. "This means more than you know." Jonathan shook, his hand firmly, feeling a sense of purpose wash over him. For the first time in years, he felt truly connected to the heart of his company, not the profits or the logistics, but the people who made it all possible. Over the following weeks, word of Jonathan's actions spread throughout the company. Other branches began implementing similar programs inspired by his example. Employees started opening up more, sharing their struggles and successes with one another. A culture of support and understanding began to take root, transforming the workplace in ways Jonathan hadn't anticipated. As for Marcus, the changes allowed him to breathe a little easier. With access to the Emergency Assistance Fund and knowing that surplus food was being donated rather than wasted, he no longer felt ashamed of his situation. He could focus on excelling at work while continuing to provide for his siblings. For Jonathan, the experience marked a turning point in his leadership journey. He realized that success wasn't just about numbers on a balance sheet. It was about making a difference in people's lives. By choosing empathy over indifference, he had sparked a ripple effect of kindness and compassion that extended far beyond the warehouse walls. And as he walked through the facility each day, greeting employees by name and listening to their stories, Jonathan knew he had found a new way to lead, one rooted in humanity, humility, and hope. The weeks following Jonathan's announcement brought a wave of change throughout the company. Employees at the sorting facility began to notice subtle differences in their daily routines. For one, the trash bins near the loading dock were no longer filled with perfectly good food. Instead, crates of slightly bruised fruits and vegetables, along with packaged items nearing their expiration dates, were carefully sorted and loaded onto trucks destined for local shelters and food banks. This new initiative not only reduced waste but also gave employees a sense of pride, knowing that their work contributed to helping others in need. It was a small shift, but it made a big impact. Marcus, in particular, felt a renewed sense of hope. The Emergency Assistance Fund Jonathan had introduced provided him with much-needed relief. For the first time in years, he didn't have to worry about choosing between paying his siblings' school fees and keeping the electricity running at home. He applied for aid anonymously, as the program promised confidentiality, and within days he received financial support that eased his burden significantly. With this newfound stability, Marcus found himself able to focus more on his job without the constant weight of stress pressing down on him. His productivity soared, and his co-workers noticed the change in his demeanor. He smiled more often and even joined them for lunch occasionally. Jonathan, too, experienced a transformation. Going undercover had opened his eyes to the realities of his employees' lives, and he couldn't unsee what he had witnessed. Every decision he made from that point forward was influenced by the lessons he had learned during those days in the warehouse. He began holding regular meetings with workers across different departments, inviting them to share their thoughts and concerns openly. At first, many were hesitant, unsure if their voices would truly be heard. But as Jonathan listened attentively, taking notes and implementing suggestions whenever possible, trust began to grow. Slowly but surely, the gap between management and staff started to close. One afternoon, while visiting another branch of the company, Jonathan met an employee named Lisa, who shared her own story of struggle. A single mother of two, Lisa worked long hours to provide for her children while juggling childcare responsibilities. She explained how difficult it was to manage her schedule when emergencies arose, such as her youngest child falling ill. Hearing her speak reminded Jonathan of Marcus and the countless others facing similar challenges. Inspired by Lisa's resilience, he decided to expand the Emergency Assistance Fund to include flexible scheduling options for parents and caregivers. This policy allowed employees to adjust their shifts temporarily during times of crisis, ensuring they could meet both their professional and personal obligations. Back at the sorting facility, Marcus continued to thrive under the improved conditions. With less pressure on his finances, he began exploring ways to advance within the company. He enrolled in night classes to earn a certification in logistics management, hoping to transition into a supervisory role someday. His dedication did not go unnoticed. One day, Jonathan approached him after noticing the extra effort Marcus put into mentoring new hires. "You've got leadership potential," Jonathan said with a smile. "I'd like to see you move up in the company. Let me know if there's anything I can do to support you." Marcus was taken aback by the offer, but grateful nonetheless. For so long, he had believed that opportunities for growth were out of reach. Now, thanks to Jonathan's encouragement, he dared to dream bigger. As the months passed, the ripple effects of Jonathan's initiatives spread far beyond the walls of the sorting facility. Other branches implemented similar programs, creating a network of support for employees across the country. Stories of gratitude poured in from all corners of the organization. Workers who had once felt invisible now felt valued and empowered. One man wrote to Jonathan explaining how the Emergency Assistance Fund helped him avoid eviction after losing his second job due to illness. Another woman shared how the donated food program allowed her to volunteer at a shelter where her late husband used to serve, keeping his memory alive. Each story reinforced Jonathan's belief that businesses had a responsibility to uplift the communities they served. Despite these successes, Jonathan remained humble. He knew there was still much work to be done. While the changes he had implemented were making a difference, he understood that systemic issues like poverty and inequality couldn't be solved overnight. Still, he was committed to doing his part. He partnered with nonprofit organizations to provide additional resources for employees, such as free counseling services and educational workshops. He also launched a mentorship program connecting senior leaders with junior staff, fostering relationships built on mutual respect and understanding. These efforts further strengthened the bond between employees and management, creating a workplace culture rooted in empathy and collaboration. For Marcus, life continued to improve in meaningful ways. His siblings noticed the positive changes as well. They saw their older brother smiling more often and spending quality time with them instead of constantly worrying about bills. Encouraged by Marcus's example, his sister expressed interest in pursuing a career in social work, inspired by the compassion she witnessed firsthand. Even his younger brother, once shy and reserved, began opening up, sharing his dreams of becoming an engineer someday. Watching them grow and flourish filled Marcus with a deep sense of fulfillment. He realized that his sacrifices were paying off, not just for him, but for the next generation. Jonathan kept in touch with Marcus, checking in periodically to see how things were going. During one of their conversations, Marcus thanked Jonathan again for everything he had done. "You didn't just help me," Marcus said earnestly. "You helped my whole family. Because of you, we have a chance at a better future." Jonathan felt a lump rise in his throat. He had always thought of success in terms of profits and achievements, but now he understood its true meaning: improving lives. Helping Marcus and others like him gave Jonathan a sense of purpose he had never experienced before. Word of the company's progressive policies reached the media, drawing attention from industry leaders and community advocates alike. Articles praising Jonathan's approach appeared in newspapers and magazines, highlighting the importance of corporate social responsibility. Some critics argued that such initiatives were unsustainable or too costly, but Jonathan stood firm in his convictions. "Businesses exist to serve people," he told reporters during an interview. "If we're not addressing the needs of our employees and communities, then we're failing as leaders. Profit is important, but it shouldn't come at the expense of humanity." The public response was overwhelmingly positive. Customers began supporting the company more enthusiastically, appreciating its commitment to ethical practices. Employees became ambassadors for the brand, sharing their stories on social media and encouraging others to join the team. Job applications surged, attracting talented individuals eager to work for a company that prioritized people over profits. Investors took note as well, recognizing the long-term benefits of fostering a loyal and motivated workforce. What started as a simple act of kindness, helping one struggling worker, had blossomed into a movement that transformed an entire organization. Even as the company grew, Jonathan refused to lose sight of its core values. He instituted annual reviews to assess the effectiveness of the programs he had introduced, ensuring they evolved to meet changing needs. He also established a committee composed of employees from all levels to oversee the initiatives, giving them ownership and accountability. This collaborative approach reinforced the idea that everyone had a stake in the company's success. It wasn't just Jonathan's vision anymore. It belonged to the entire team. Looking back, Jonathan marveled at how much had changed since that fateful week when he went undercover. What began as a quest for insight had turned into a journey of self-discovery. He had entered the warehouse seeking answers about his business, but he left with something far greater: a renewed sense of purpose. By choosing to lead with empathy and compassion, he had proven that even the smallest acts of kindness could spark monumental transformations. And as he walked through the bustling facility each day, greeting employees by name and hearing their laughter echo through the halls, Jonathan knew he had created something truly special, a workplace where people mattered most. As the months rolled on, the changes Jonathan had set in motion continued to take root and flourish. The sorting facility, once a place defined by its hustle and bustle, now carried an air of camaraderie and mutual respect. Employees who had once kept to themselves began forming bonds, sharing stories over lunch breaks or helping each other during busy shifts. It wasn't just about getting the job done anymore. It was about doing it together. For many, including Marcus, this shift created a sense of belonging that they hadn't felt before. Marcus, in particular, found himself at the center of this transformation. His colleagues looked up to him as someone who had overcome immense challenges yet remained humble and hardworking. When Jonathan announced that he wanted to promote Marcus to a supervisory role, the news spread quickly through the warehouse. People cheered for him, patting him on the back and congratulating him on his well-deserved promotion. At first, Marcus felt overwhelmed by the responsibility, but with Jonathan's guidance and encouragement, he stepped into his new role with confidence. Leading a team came naturally to him. He understood their struggles because he had lived them himself. In his new position, Marcus became a bridge between management and employees. He made sure everyone's voices were heard, relaying concerns to higher-ups while also explaining company policies in ways that resonated with his co-workers. His ability to connect with people earned him trust and admiration from both sides. One day, during a meeting with Jonathan, Marcus suggested implementing a peer recognition program where employees could nominate coworkers for outstanding contributions. Sometimes a little appreciation goes a long way, Marcus explained. Jonathan loved the idea and immediately put it into action. Within weeks, the program sparked a wave of positivity, with workers eagerly celebrating each other's achievements. Meanwhile, Jonathan's efforts to create a more compassionate workplace extended beyond the sorting facility. He visited branches across the country, listening to employees' stories and learning about the unique challenges they faced. In one city, he met a group of night shift workers who struggled to balance their jobs with family responsibilities. Inspired by their dedication, Jonathan introduced flexible scheduling options nationwide, allowing employees to swap shifts or adjust hours based on personal needs. This change not only improved morale, but also increased productivity, as workers felt more empowered to manage their time effectively. Back at headquarters, Jonathan worked tirelessly to ensure that the company's values aligned with its actions. He partnered with nonprofit organizations to expand the Emergency Assistance Fund, making it accessible to employees facing crises like natural disasters or unexpected medical expenses. He also launched a scholarship program for children of employees, providing financial aid for college tuition. These initiatives reinforced the message that the company cared about its workers' futures, not just professionally but personally as well. The impact of these programs rippled outward, touching lives in ways no one could have anticipated. Take Lisa, the single mother Jonathan had met earlier. With the help of flexible scheduling and counseling services provided by the company, she was able to care for her sick child without fear of losing her job. Her son recovered fully, and Lisa returned to work with renewed energy and gratitude. She later wrote a heartfelt letter to Jonathan, thanking him for giving her hope during one of the darkest times of her life. "You showed me that I'm not alone," she wrote. "That means everything." For Marcus, the changes allowed him to dream bigger than ever before. With financial stability and a supportive work environment, he focused on building a brighter future for his siblings. His younger brother, inspired by Marcus's perseverance, started excelling in school, earning top grades in math and science. His sister, meanwhile, volunteered at a local community center, gaining valuable experience for her goal of becoming a social worker. Watching them thrive filled Marcus with pride. He often reflected on how far they had come since those early days after their parents' passing. While the journey had been difficult, Marcus knew it had shaped them into stronger, more resilient individuals. Jonathan, too, underwent a profound transformation. Leading with empathy had taught him lessons he never expected. He realized that true leadership wasn't about issuing orders or chasing profits. It was about serving others. Every decision he made was guided by the question, how will this affect my employees? This mindset shifted the entire culture of the company. Workers no longer saw themselves as mere cogs in a machine. Instead, they viewed themselves as valued contributors to something greater. Morale soared, turnover rates dropped, and productivity reached record highs. One afternoon, during a visit to a regional branch, Jonathan encountered a young employee named Sophia. A recent college graduate, Sophia had joined the company hoping to gain experience in logistics management. However, she quickly grew disillusioned when her ideas were repeatedly dismissed by senior staff. Feeling undervalued, she considered quitting until she heard about the mentorship program Jonathan had launched. Skeptical but curious, she signed up and was paired with a seasoned manager who took genuine interest in her growth. Under his guidance, Sophia developed innovative strategies to streamline operations, earning recognition from her peers and superiors alike. When Jonathan met her, she thanked him profusely for creating opportunities for young professionals like herself. These interactions reminded Jonathan of why he had embarked on this journey in the first place. It wasn't just about fixing problems within the company, it was about empowering people to reach their full potential. By fostering an environment where everyone felt seen, heard, and supported, he had unleashed a wave of creativity and innovation that benefited the entire organization. Employees weren't just working for a paycheck anymore. They were investing in a shared vision of success. Even outside the company, the effects of Jonathan's initiatives were felt. Local communities embraced the partnerships formed through the food donation program, reducing hunger and strengthening ties between businesses and residents. Shelters reported a significant decrease in food shortages, enabling them to serve more people in need. Schools benefited from the scholarship program, welcoming talented students who might otherwise have been unable to afford higher education. And families like Marcus's experienced newfound stability thanks to the Emergency Assistance Fund. Despite these successes, Jonathan remained grounded. He understood that progress was a continuous process, requiring constant effort and adaptation. To stay connected with employees, he held quarterly town hall meetings where anyone could voice their opinions or concerns. These sessions became a cornerstone of the company's culture, fostering transparency and accountability. They also provided Jonathan with valuable insights, helping him identify areas for improvement and refine existing programs. As the years passed, the company grew exponentially, expanding into new markets and industries. Yet, even as it evolved, its core values remained unchanged. Empathy, integrity, and inclusivity continued to guide every decision, ensuring that growth never came at the expense of humanity. Customers responded positively, choosing to support a brand that prioritized ethical practices. Investors recognized the long-term benefits of a loyal and motivated workforce, leading to sustained financial success. What started as a small act of kindness, helping one struggling worker, had transformed into a legacy of compassion and purpose. For Marcus, the journey culminated in a moment of triumph. After years of hard work and perseverance, he achieved a lifelong dream, purchasing a home for his family. Standing on the front porch of their modest house, surrounded by his siblings, Marcus felt a deep sense of fulfillment. He thought back to the days when survival seemed impossible, when he scavenged food from trash bins just to get by. Those memories still lingered, but they no longer defined him. Instead, they served as a reminder of how far he had come and how much he had overcome. Jonathan attended the housewarming party, bringing along a plaque engraved with a simple message: "To Marcus, whose resilience inspires us all." As they stood side by side, reflecting on the journey that had brought them together, Jonathan felt a profound sense of gratitude. He had entered the warehouse seeking answers, but he left with something far greater: a renewed understanding of what it meant to lead with heart. By choosing to prioritize people over profits, he had proven that even the smallest acts of kindness could spark monumental transformations. And as he looked around at the smiling faces of Marcus's family, he knew he had created something truly special, a workplace where everyone mattered most. As the years went by, the company's reputation continued to grow, not just as a successful business, but as a beacon of hope and compassion. People began referring to it as the company with a heart, a testament to the values Jonathan had instilled in every aspect of its operations. News outlets featured stories about employees whose lives had been transformed by the initiatives Jonathan introduced. From Marcus's journey out of poverty to Lisa's ability to care for her children without sacrificing her career, these personal narratives painted a vivid picture of how businesses could make a real difference in people's lives. The public response was overwhelmingly positive, with customers praising the company's commitment to ethical practices and social responsibility. For Marcus, life took on a rhythm he had never imagined possible. After moving into their new home, his siblings settled into routines that reflected stability and ambition. His younger brother joined the robotics club at school, spending hours tinkering with gadgets and dreaming of one day inventing something revolutionary. His sister volunteered more frequently at the community center, gaining hands-on experience in organizing programs for underprivileged youth. Watching them thrive filled Marcus with pride and gratitude. He often thought about how close they had come to losing everything, and how much Jonathan's intervention had changed their trajectory. Every milestone they reached felt like a victory, not just for them, but for everyone who had supported them along the way. At work, Marcus embraced his role as a leader, mentoring new hires and advocating for policies that benefited employees at all levels. One of his proudest achievements was helping establish a childcare assistance program for working parents. Inspired by Lisa's struggles, Marcus proposed the idea during a town hall meeting, explaining how access to affordable childcare could ease the burden on families juggling work and parenting responsibilities. Jonathan immediately backed the proposal, and within months the program was rolled out across multiple branches. It included subsidies for daycare services, partnerships with local nurseries, and backup care options for emergencies. Employees hailed the initiative as a game changer, allowing them to focus on their jobs without worrying about their kids' safety or well-being. Jonathan, meanwhile, found himself constantly inspired by the resilience and creativity of his workforce. During his visits to different branches, he met countless individuals whose stories reinforced his belief in the power of empathy. There was Elena, a single mother who used the scholarship program to pursue a degree in engineering while continuing to work full-time. Her determination earned her promotions within the company, eventually landing her a managerial position. Then there was James, a veteran struggling to adjust to civilian life after serving in the military. With the help of counseling services and flexible scheduling, James rebuilt his confidence and became a key member of the logistics team. Each story reminded Jonathan that behind every employee was a unique journey, shaped by challenges and triumphs. The ripple effects of Jonathan's leadership extended far beyond the company itself. Local communities thrived thanks to the partnerships forged through the food donation program. Shelters reported fewer instances of food insecurity, enabling them to allocate resources toward other critical needs like housing and healthcare. Schools welcomed students supported by the scholarship program, enriching classrooms with diverse perspectives and talents, and families, relieved of financial burdens, invested in their futures with renewed optimism. These outcomes validated Jonathan's vision of creating a business model centered on uplifting others. Profits mattered, yes, but they were no longer the sole measure of success. Even competitors took notice of the company's innovative approach. Industry leaders praised Jonathan for setting a new standard in corporate social responsibility, urging others to follow suit. Some initially dismissed his methods as impractical or too costly, but when the company's profits soared alongside employee satisfaction rates, skeptics were forced to reconsider. Investors flocked to support the brand, recognizing the long-term benefits of fostering a loyal and motivated workforce. Customers, too, showed their loyalty by choosing the company's products over those of rivals. What started as a grassroots movement within a single warehouse had blossomed into a nationwide phenomenon. Despite the accolades, Jonathan remained humble. He knew that true success wasn't measured by headlines or awards, but by the impact he made on people's lives. To ensure the company stayed true to its mission, he established an advisory board composed of employees from various departments. This group provided feedback on existing programs and brainstormed ideas for future initiatives. Their input ensured that decisions reflected the needs and aspirations of the entire workforce, reinforcing the idea that everyone had a stake in the company's success. Transparency became a cornerstone of the organization's culture, with quarterly reports detailing progress and areas for improvement. One evening, during a rare quiet moment at home, Jonathan reflected on how much had changed since that fateful week when he first went undercover. Back then, he had entered the sorting facility seeking answers about inefficiencies in operations. What he discovered instead were human stories, stories of struggle, sacrifice, and resilience that reshaped his understanding of leadership. Those early days taught him that businesses existed not merely to generate revenue, but to serve the people who powered them. By prioritizing humanity over profit, he had unleashed a wave of transformation that touched countless lives. Marcus often joined Jonathan for coffee during site visits, using these moments to share updates about his siblings or discuss potential improvements to workplace policies. Their friendship deepened over time, built on mutual respect and shared goals. On one such occasion, Marcus expressed his desire to expand the peer recognition program to include external partners, such as drivers and suppliers. "They're part of our team too," Marcus argued, Recognizing their contributions would strengthen our relationships and create a sense of unity. Jonathan loved the idea and tasked Marcus with leading the project. Within weeks, the expanded program launched, earning rave reviews from participants and further solidifying the company's reputation as a collaborative partner. As the company continued to grow, Jonathan introduced additional measures to ensure inclusivity and equity. He implemented diversity training workshops, encouraging employees to embrace differences and challenge biases. He also established affinity groups for underrepresented communities, providing safe spaces for connection and advocacy. These efforts fostered a culture of acceptance and belonging, where everyone felt valued regardless of background or identity. Employees responded enthusiastically, participating in events and initiatives that celebrated their unique contributions to the organization. Even as the company expanded into international markets, Jonathan insisted on maintaining its core values. Branches abroad adopted similar programs tailored to local contexts, addressing issues like education access, healthcare disparities, and environmental sustainability. For example, in regions affected by natural disasters, the company partnered with relief organizations to provide aid and rebuild infrastructure. In urban centers grappling with unemployment, it offered vocational training programs to equip residents with marketable skills. These global initiatives reinforced the message that the company cared deeply about the communities it served, wherever they might be. Back at the sorting facility, life carried on with a sense of purpose and camaraderie. Workers greeted each other warmly, sharing jokes and stories during breaks. New hires quickly adapted to the supportive environment, knowing they could rely on their colleagues for guidance and encouragement. Even the physical space reflected the positive changes. Bright murals adorned the walls depicting themes of teamwork and perseverance. A bulletin board displayed photos of employees volunteering at shelters or participating in community events, showcasing the spirit of giving back that defined the company's ethos. For Jonathan, the most rewarding aspect of this journey was witnessing the transformations, not just in individual lives but in the collective mindset of the organization. Gone were the days when success was measured solely by numbers on a balance sheet. Now, it was about creating opportunities, fostering growth, and making a tangible difference in the world. Every decision, big or small, stemmed from the question, how can we improve lives? This philosophy guided the company forward, ensuring that it remained a force for good in an ever-changing landscape. Looking ahead, Jonathan envisioned even greater possibilities. He dreamed of expanding the Emergency Assistance Fund to cover mental health services, acknowledging the importance of emotional well-being in achieving overall stability. He also planned to launch a green initiative aimed at reducing the company's carbon footprint, aligning with global efforts to combat climate change. These projects required careful planning and collaboration, but Jonathan was confident that the same principles of empathy and innovation that had driven past successes would guide future endeavors. As he walked through the bustling facility one morning, Jonathan paused to observe the scene around him. Workers moved efficiently between tasks, laughter echoed through the halls, and crates of fresh produce lined the loading dock ready to nourish families. Years later, the story of Jonathan Reed and his company became a legend in the business world. What had started as a simple decision to go undercover had blossomed into a movement that redefined corporate leadership. The company wasn't just known for its products or services, it was celebrated for its humanity. People spoke of it with admiration, not because it was flawless, but because it dared to care. Its success proved that businesses could be profitable, while remaining compassionate, a lesson that resonated far beyond its walls. For Marcus, life had transformed in ways he once thought impossible. His siblings were thriving, his brother excelling in school and his sister actively volunteering at the community center. They had grown into confident young adults, each pursuing their dreams with determination. Marcus himself had risen through the ranks, becoming one of the company's most respected leaders. He often found himself mentoring others, sharing his story to inspire those facing similar struggles. "If I can make it," he would say during these sessions, "so can you. It's not easy, but you don't have to do it alone." The bond between Marcus and Jonathan remained strong, built on mutual respect and shared experiences. Their conversations often turned reflective, discussing how much they had both grown since that fateful week years ago. Jonathan marveled at Marcus's resilience, crediting him with sparking the changes that reshaped the company. "You showed me what true strength looks like," Jonathan said one afternoon as they sat together in the break room. "I went undercover to learn about the business, but you taught me about life." Marcus chuckled softly, shaking his head. "No, Mr. Reed. You're the one who taught us that kindness matters more than anything else." Kindness, indeed, had become the cornerstone of the company's culture. Employees referred to it as the ripple effect, how one act of compassion could spread outward, touching countless lives. Take Lisa, for example. After benefiting from flexible scheduling and counseling services, she completed her degree and transitioned into a managerial role. Inspired by her journey, she spearheaded a wellness initiative focused on mental health awareness. Workshops, support groups, and mindfulness sessions became regular features of workplace life, helping employees manage stress and maintain balance. Even outside the company, the impact of Jonathan's initiatives continued to grow. Local shelters reported significant reductions in food waste thanks to the donation program, allowing them to serve more meals to those in need. Schools welcomed scholarship recipients, enriching classrooms with diverse perspectives and fresh ideas. Families regained stability through the Emergency Assistance Fund, breaking cycles of poverty and creating brighter futures for generations to come. These outcomes reinforced Jonathan's belief that businesses had a responsibility to uplift the communities they served. As the company expanded globally, Jonathan ensured that its values traveled with it. New branches adopted programs tailored to local needs, addressing issues like education access, healthcare disparities, and environmental sustainability. In regions recovering from natural disasters, the company partnered with relief organizations to rebuild infrastructure and provide aid. In urban centers struggling with unemployment, it offered vocational training programs to equip residents with marketable skills. These efforts solidified its reputation as a global leader in corporate social responsibility. Back at the sorting facility, life carried on with a sense of purpose and unity. Workers greeted each other warmly, sharing stories and laughter during breaks. New hires quickly adapted to the supportive environment, knowing they could rely on their colleagues for guidance and encouragement. Even the physical space reflected the positive changes. Bright murals adorned the walls depicting themes of teamwork and perseverance. A bulletin board displayed photos of employees volunteering at shelters or participating in community events, showcasing the spirit of giving back that defined the company's ethos. Jonathan's vision extended beyond traditional metrics of success. He introduced green initiatives aimed at reducing the company's carbon footprint, aligning with global efforts to combat climate change. Solar panels powered warehouses, electric vehicles replaced gas-guzzling trucks, and sustainable packaging reduced waste. These measures earned praise from environmental advocates, further enhancing the company's reputation as a forward-thinking organization. Yet Jonathan never lost sight of the human element. Every decision, no matter how large or small, stemmed from the question, how will this improve lives? One evening, during a rare quiet moment at home, Jonathan reflected on the journey that had brought him here. From the days of building the business from scratch to the weeks spent undercover in the warehouse, every experience had shaped him into the leader he was today. He remembered the faces of employees like Marcus, Lisa, and James. Their stories, etched in his memory as reminders of why empathy mattered. Those early days had taught him that success wasn't about numbers on a balance sheet. It was about creating opportunities, fostering growth, and making a tangible difference in the world. Marcus, too, often looked back on his journey with gratitude. He thought about the nights he spent scavenging food from trash bins, the weight of responsibility pressing down on him as he worked tirelessly to support his siblings. Those memories still lingered, but they no longer defined him. Instead, they served as fuel for his determination to help others avoid similar struggles. Whether mentoring new hires or advocating for policy changes, Marcus poured his heart into ensuring that no one felt invisible or unsupported. The relationship between Marcus and Jonathan evolved over time, transitioning from mentorship to friendship. They often discussed future plans, brainstorming ways to expand existing programs or introduce new initiatives. One idea they explored was creating a foundation dedicated to supporting underserved communities. By leveraging the company's resources and networks, they hoped to tackle systemic issues like poverty, inequality, and lack of access to education. It was an ambitious goal, but neither doubted its feasibility, not after seeing what they had already accomplished together. As the years rolled on, the company faced challenges as all businesses do. Economic downturns, supply chain disruptions, and shifting consumer demands tested its resilience. Yet, through every obstacle, the organization stood firm, guided by the principles of empathy and collaboration. Employees rallied around shared goals, finding innovative solutions to complex problems. Customers remained loyal, appreciating the brand's commitment to ethical practices. Investors recognized the long-term value of a motivated and engaged workforce, ensuring financial stability even during uncertain times. Looking ahead, Jonathan envisioned a future filled with possibilities. He dreamed of expanding the Emergency Assistance Fund to cover mental health services, acknowledging the importance of emotional well-being in achieving overall stability. He also planned to launch a mentorship program connecting employees across continents, fostering cross-cultural understanding and innovation. These projects required careful planning and collaboration, but Jonathan was confident that the same principles of empathy and inclusivity that had driven past successes would guide future endeavors. On a crisp autumn morning, Jonathan walked through the bustling sorting facility, observing the scene around him. Workers moved efficiently between tasks, laughter echoed through the halls, and crates of fresh produce lined the loading dock, ready to nourish families across the country. It was a snapshot of harmony, a testament to what could be achieved when people came together with a shared vision. As Marcus approached him with a smile, offering a cup of coffee and asking how things were going, Jonathan knew he had created something truly extraordinary, a workplace where humanity always came first. And so, the legacy continued. Stories of transformation spread, inspiring others to follow suit. Competitors adopted similar practices, recognizing the benefits of prioritizing people over profits. Industry leaders praised Jonathan for setting a new standard in corporate social responsibility, urging others to embrace empathy as a guiding principle. Customers chose the company's products not just for their quality, but for the values they represented. What started as a single act of kindness, helping one struggling worker, had sparked a revolution, proving that even the smallest gestures could ignite monumental change. In the end, Jonathan realized that true leadership wasn't about titles or accolades. It was about serving others. By choosing to lead with heart, he had proven that businesses could be forces for good in the world. And as he watched employees laugh, collaborate, and dream big, he knew he had fulfilled his purpose to create a workplace where everyone mattered most.